Hello guys, Ryan from Husky Moving here, Arlington, Massachusetts. Full service moving company. We do commercial, residential, we do handyman jobs, assembly jobs, piano moving, hoisting, anything a typical moving company will do. Disposal. Plus we do a lot more actually. We do a ton of assembly work, a ton of what I would consider to be handyman work, a little bit of drywall repair this week. Tons of shit. You need it done, we'll try to get it done. Here's what I want to talk about. First off, I've been gone for a little while. Not that anyone's noticed, but I've been gone for a little while. End of the summer has been brutal. Very, very busy, which is a good thing. But the energy level to be doing videos has been minimal. The energy level to be doing anything other than completing jobs and then resting has been minimal, if I'm being honest with you. Anyway, what I want to talk about is we had a little bit of a sitch today. I got hired by a woman to work with another guy to move some items from her apartment to storage, one of which was a treadmill. So the treadmill, I looked at it ahead of time. It needed to be disassembled. I told her that ahead of time. I said, just so you know, this is going to need to come apart. I'm sure you know that already, but I can't tell you how often I have sorry, I'm a little tired. Just got in from work, which is why I'm sweaty, by the way. Probably glistening on camera. I have conversations with people that I think I'm saying things that are just completely common sense, and the customer's like, what do you mean? I don't get it. Anyway, I'm like, listen, just so you know, she showed me where it was coming out of and blah, blah, blah. I said, just so you know, the treadmill's going to have to come apart. She's like, yeah, I know, blah, blah, blah. She sent me instructions. She sent me the model number of the treadmill, and because I've been doing this long enough, I knew that when I get there, the likelihood that the other guy is going to know what he's doing is pretty small. And I'm not trying to sound like a jackass, but, you know, experience has taught me certain things. Pretty small that this guy's going to know what he's doing. So I look up the instructions ahead of time online, print out 3 different copies, one for me, one for him, one for the customer that she can keep for the next time she needs to put this treadmill back together. Because we're taking it to storage, it's not going to have to be reassembled. Okay? So I show up with 3 different instructions on how to take it apart. We get there, the kid's there ahead of me, which is abnormal. Normally I'm the first one there. Kid's there ahead of me, which is a good sign, but what wasn't a good sign was, you know, I show up in a full, uniform, and he shows up in jeans, like a t-shirt, a floral long sleeve on top of that, and then like a matching headband bandana. Not what I would consider to be moving gear. So that was my first thing. I was like, oh, Jesus, here we go. This isn't going to be good. Because I knew the reason why I mentioned this is because we weren't moving just like regular household goods. This treadmill was a commercial grade treadmill. Now, for those of you who don't dabble in treadmills, which is 99.9% of you, you have no reason to know this, but they make residential treadmills and they make commercial treadmills. The commercial treadmills are the ones that you typically find in a gym. They tend to be heavier for obvious reasons. They're higher quality. They're more metal, larger. Everything about them is just better, but what that comes with is they're significantly heavier usually for obvious reasons. More metal is heavier. This one in particular was absolute diesel, but we'll get to that in a moment. So the reason I mentioned with this kid's attire is because I already knew going in that this commercial grade treadmill was going to be a nightmare, because she had mentioned to me not only did it have to come out of like an in-law suite in the back of the house, but it needed to be walked, what she said was like 200 yards through like a wooded area, was what she told me. Now, I live around here, so I know what a wooded area is most likely going to look like. Mud, dirt, tree branches hitting you as you're walking by, blah, blah, blah. So that's why I mentioned the kid's attire, because I already knew, like I was hoping I was going to show up and I was going to be like, oh my God, I'm going to be moving with a professional. And I was like, definitely not moving with a professional. I'm mentioning this for a reason, not to shit on the kid, but we're going somewhere with a story, so bear with me. I know I'm long-winded here. So first thing, we get in there and I start explaining to the lady and to the guy I was working with. I said, listen, here's how I think we want to do the treadmill, and here's why I think we should do it this way. And I explained to him what bolts needed to come out, and as luck would have it, the instructions were perfect. Like what they told me needed to be done was exactly what needed to be done. So that was great. So this kid I was working with, to his credit, was like, hey, listen, it seems like you got the treadmill unlocked. Do you want to work on taking that apart, and I'll run everything out to the truck? And I was like, great, sold, done. And if I'm being completely honest with you, I'm really glad he said that, because taking apart the treadmill in my mind is a little bit specialized, and the only reason I say that is because if you've ever assembled or disassembled a treadmill, you know that there's very important electronic wires running through the unit that need to be dismantled properly, marked, can't be cut, obviously, which seems like common sense, but you'd be surprised. Tiny little baby wires, and then you have this giant headpiece that's heavy, metal. I've seen people pick it up, put it down on the wires before, crack the plastic harnesses, cut the wire. Just trust me, it can. If you're not paying attention to what you're doing, you can really create havoc. It's not it's actually a relatively easy thing to do if you're just willing to pay attention to what you're doing. But like anything, a lot of people don't want to do that. All right, so he gets running stuff out to the truck. I'm taking about the treadmill. The treadmill's coming apart great. I'm really happy with everything. He's running stuff to the truck. Great. Really happy with everything. While he was running, I started to notice certain things about his behavior, and I'm going to mention these for a reason, not because I'm trying to shit on him, but you got to keep in mind, like, my job in this scenario is I got to make sure everything gets done correctly. B, I got to protect myself and my business and my family by extension, who potentially is a part of this fiasco if something goes wrong. So I don't necessarily just look at it as like, I'm not always just looking at it like what's right in front of me, meaning like we got to pick up boxes. Like there's a lot of shit on the back end that other people don't necessarily think about that I think about, like liability issues that unfortunately I have to think about whether I want to or not. Anywho, I mentioned this for a reason. Going somewhere. Treadmill gets taken apart. We get all the hardware in a bag. I give it to the customer. We're talking through everything, blah, blah, blah. I tell the gentleman that we're going to have to take the treadmill, which is the heavy part, the running part of the treadmill, which is on the floor like this. We have to turn it sideways to get it through the door. Okay? Common sense. Every treadmill I've ever moved in my entire life starts off like this. You got to turn it like this to get it through the door. And then if you want to, you can turn it back down. But anytime you go through a door, more often than not, you have to go like this, like straight up and down, because it's too wide to go through the frame of the door. If you have a huge door, you can make it through sometimes. But usually what happens is you have a running surface, and then outside of the running surface, there's armature plastic pieces that won't allow it to go through flat. I mentioned this for a reason. Before I can even get on the heavy side of the treadmill, which is the side where the motor is, it's always the heaviest side because that's where all the weight is, where the motor is. And every time I carry a treadmill, and I mean every time I carry a treadmill, I take the motor side because I want to be responsible for the worst part of it because I know I'm going to be able to handle it. I know nothing's going to go wrong. And I'm unwilling to give that to the other person because I've seen other people try to do it and just the fiasco that happens when they've tried to do it. So normally I don't even take a chance. In this particular time, the kid literally jumped on the motor side right away before I could even get over there. And so I kind of gently said to him without making it known what I was doing. I was like, hey, that side is typically the heavier side. You sure you don't want me to hop on that side? And the kid was like, nah, I'm good. And I was like, okay. And then I went in the other room for a second. I literally had a discussion with myself. And I was like, dude, give him the benefit of the doubt. He says he's got it. Take him at his word. Should be good. I already had that in my mind, even though I thought it was a bad idea because I knew how heavy the treadmill was. I really thought it was a bad idea. I was like, fuck. All right, just do it. Let him go. He says he's got it. Come back out of the room. He's actually just so happened he had walked over to the other side. So while he had walked over to the other side to do something, I literally went over to the motor side and grabbed it. And I was like, all right, that's my sign from God. I'm supposed to be on this side. He's supposed to be on the other side. So like I always do, in my mind, there's 100 things going on. And I'm like, all right, now it's time for me to dictate this scenario. So I'm like, all right, you ready to do the treadmill? Meaning like, we're doing it now because I'm in the position I know I need to be in, and I want to encourage him to go to the position he needs to be in. He's like, yeah, we can do it. I said, all right, before we pick it up, just so you know, up in the air, turn it on its side. I had asked the customer to, once we had got it up in the air, it was the treadmill was really, really heavy. Like I carry treadmills all the time. This one was very, very heavy, like upper end of the spectrum of treadmills I've carried. I mentioned this only because I told the woman, when we get it up in the air, let us carry the weight to get it up in the air. We're going to flip it on its side. Once we get on its side, I'm going to have you pass him the cord because he's got the lighter end, so it'll be easier for him to manage a cord. Let me just handle the weight. I said to him very specifically No disrespect, I've got the heavier side. I need you to go at my speed, not at your speed, okay? So let me get it up, let me turn it over. Going somewhere with this. Off the ground, start to pick it over. I'm like, hey, you good? He's like, I'm good. I'm like, all right, cool. Got to get it over some more. So we rotate it over some more. Rotate it over some more. Start going through the frame of the door. I'm fine. I thought he was fine. And then all of a sudden, he starts panicking and go, whoa, 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 whoa. And literally, when I tell you he dropped it from 3 feet in the air, I mean he dropped it. Slipped out of his hands, came down right onto the ground on the corner of the treadmill. I'm still up in the air with my end. His end has slammed off the ground. The customer watched it happen. Literally was right next to us when it happened. It just looks so unprofessional. It looks so unprofessional. Easy. That's my dog. My pit bull Ghosty. You're adorable, and I love you, but not the time. I'm making a video. Get in there. Chill out. Looks terrible. And so now at this point, it's like damage control time. I'm like, all right, we got to get your end off the ground. We got to come through the frame of the door. Immediately when we come through the frame of the door, we're going to put it on the ground. We're going to assess the damage. Are you able to get it off the ground? He says he is. Okay. Pick it up off the ground, through the frame of the door, flip it on the side so the feet are facing down, put it on the ground. The corner of the treadmill, there's a giant plastic piece that has now dislodged. I kind of assumed it was broken. Thankfully, it wasn't. What had happened was, it was connected by like this like hinge clip thing, and when the pressure of the ground hit it, the hinge gave way and it popped open. So I looked at the thing and I said, listen, there's a screw right there. Now keep in mind, I didn't drop it. So at this point, I'm like, fuck this. Not my responsibility to fix this thing. It's your responsibility to fix it, not mine. I'm going about my business. I did what I was supposed to do. So I was like, listen, that screw right there probably needs to be untightened. There's an Allen key in my tool bag. Go in my tool bag, get the Allen key, loosen that up, see if you can get that plastic piece to fit together, and then retighten the screw. And then I skedaddle out of there because I'm like, not my issue. I didn't do anything. Right or wrong, I'm like, fuck it. I'm keeping working. I got shit to do. Go to the truck, bring some to the truck, come back over. Kid's like, it's good. It's back in. To his credit, it looked perfect. It didn't look like anything had happened. Now, I don't know if any damage was done internally to the treadmill. This thing is a beefy ass unit. Like, I would be shocked if anything happened to the like inside of the treadmill or got damaged in any way, but it did take a pretty heavy fall. So now, like, in the back of my head, we didn't really say anything per se to the customer. I wasn't like apologetic or anything, because if I'm being honest with you, like, what am I apologizing for? I didn't drop anything, so like not my responsibility. What am I going to apologize on his behalf? Like, I'm sorry he dropped it? I mean, I guess so, but like, I feel like he should be the one apologizing, not me. If he wanted to. And then, so we went about the job, and from that point forward, like, I mean, I didn't really do anything differently, if I'm being honest with you. I did everything the same way I always would. I was super protective of everything, made sure everything was tied down. I was like super communicating? You know what I'm trying to say. It's been a long day. Get off my back. Communicating with the customer, like, what would make you feel comfortable if I did this, or if I did this? Do you want me to do this? Anything else we could do for, all that crap that I normally do that stuff anyway. But the point of that, I was a little bit over the top of it because of the treadmill fiasco. Treadmill appeared to be fine. We got over the storage. From that point, that was by far the worst of it, because that was the hardest thing we had to do. Getting into storage wasn't even a big deal. It was heavy as balls, but it was not a big deal. So anyway, the point of the story is at the end of the job, I just left the job, and then I actually sent her a message afterwards, between her and the company that hired this other kid. Not the kid. The kid himself was not involved in the message because I wasn't trying to make him feel bad. That was not my intent of what I was doing at all. I sent a message that CC'd the woman and the company that hired this kid, and I said, listen, on behalf of the customer, here's what happened. And I told them literally exactly what happened. And then something along the lines of, it's important that, transparency in case anything down the line comes as a result of this. drop of the treadmill, whether that be cosmetic or functionality of the treadmill itself. Like she could go to turn it on and it might not work. Now we didn't try it before we moved it, so the thing could have already been broken anyway. I don't know. But the point of the story is, you can't go wrong with transparency. You can go real wrong without being transparent. So sent the message, so they have a record of it. Now the company that hired him has a record of it. The woman has a record of it, so she feels hopefully more comfortable. It's on record in case anything happens like 6 months down the line when she goes to get the stuff out of storage. And it's probably most important for me personally is it's on record. What's most important is the last thing I wrote. I wrote that long message, and then I wrote one more message that said, I feel guilty that I have to say this, but I need it written down that I did not drop the treadmill. I never dropped the treadmill. I had it up in the air the entire time. Didn't do any damage to the treadmill. I'm sorry I have to write this, but I need to protect myself. Which is the God's honest truth. I do feel like a jackass sending that message, 100%. I feel like a shithead, because I don't want to put blame on someone else. It's not my intention. I don't want to do it. But at the end of the day, respectfully, I don't know this kid. I've never met him before. I don't give a fuck about this kid. I hope he's okay. I know he didn't get hurt. I care about that part of it. I care about him as a human being. But in terms of business, I don't know him. I don't have a relationship with him. I don't care about him other than we had a job to do today. And for that part of our job, I care about him. Other than that, in terms of dropping this treadmill, I don't care about him. I didn't drop it. He dropped it. He's responsible for it. I'm not responsible for it. And that's all I care about. If that sounds harsh, I get it. But when it's my ass on the line, my company, my reputation, my truck, my equipment, my family, my parents that they could choose to go after, I don't give a fuck about this kid. No offense. I love you, but I don't give a fuck about you. I care about my family. Sorry to sound harsh, but it is what it is. So that was a way for me to be transparent with the company of something that happened on the job. Transparent with her, and also take all liability off myself. Now the customer went back into the chat thread and thanked me, gave me a huge tip, and wrote down in the log, so it was written down. She verified everything that I had wrote happened as I had wrote it, and that I had no responsibility for what happened. So I'm off the hook as far as I'm concerned. Nobody could ever come back and try to pin this on me, which is all I care about, really. I mean, I care about the customer, obviously. I want her transparency is important to me too. I mean, being transparent with what happened is important to me too. But ultimately, if I didn't do anything wrong, that's my major concern, is I don't want to be held liable for anything. And that's a huge concern for anyone who owns a business or anything really. Like, it's a huge concern, and it should be a huge concern. I would encourage you to keep that in mind when you're doing things and making decisions, because more often than not, when something happens and goes awry on a job, I would say 99.9% of the time, it could have been avoided had you taken certain steps or stopped what you were doing in the moment, or, did what I did today, which is like, make sure everything was written down, make sure your liability is taken squared away, blah, blah, blah. In any given job, there's like 5, 6, 7 to 35 different moments where you need to stop, take a breath, and say, hey, how do I protect myself right now? Right? I hope you guys took something from this video. Intention of the video was not to shit on my coworker. It was a very difficult treadmill to move. I've certainly made a ton of mistakes in my life. Not to shit on him, not to shit on the customer, is to give you guys a little informational tutorial on how you want to handle things if something goes wrong on a job, to protect those who need to be protected, which in this case were me and the customer. Unfortunately, the gentleman who dropped the treadmill did not need to be protected. And that's just whatever. It's part of the story. Anyway, hope you guys found some value in this video. If you did, press like and subscribe. I would appreciate it. All right, guys. Thank you.